Hey everyone, welcome to yet another episode of the Industry Show. I'm your host Nitin Bajaj, and joining us today is Sundaresh Subramanian, popularly known as Sundi. Sundi, thanks for having us here. It's a beautiful day here in Santa Clara, and I'm glad you've chosen to spend it with us.
Likewise.
Thank you. So let's get started in 90 seconds. Okay. Tell us your journey up to this point.
Wow.
Putting you on the spot.
Born in Chennai, raised in Kolkata, schooling at St. Lawrence, followed by B.Tech at IIT Madras, then to upstate New York at Cornell for a master's. First job in Silicon Valley, California with National Semiconductor, back to Philadelphia for an MBA at Wharton, then back to California with Hewlett-Packard for 8 years. And on that journey, did a stint in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean, and then back to California and been here for the last 30 years.
Nice.
And went through HP, a couple of mid-sized companies, including Adaptec, and then 4 startups. And the last few years, I've been on the board of several startups and running a couple of startups as well.
Amazing.
So that's the journey to date.
Wow, that's phenomenal. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
So you tried escaping from California, but it brings you back.
California has this amazing draw. When I did the first stint in Silicon Valley, I decided for a techie like me, this was the place to be. Yeah. So it didn't matter where the journey took me, it was back here.
Yes.
Yeah.
So amidst all this travel, what's your favorite city?
Well, my favorite place is Yosemite National Park.
Yes. Can't beat
my
that.
favorite city in the memories is still Kolkata.
Okay.
Just something warm and delightful about that place, and still in my memories.
That's still home.
It's still.
Yeah. So this is our rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Don't think too much. What's the favorite store that you shop at a lot?
Whole Foods.
Okay. That was easy. Something you wish you own, something you own but you wish you didn't.
My timeshare.
We've heard that one before. In fact,
such a waste of time.
Well, you're sharing your time. That's the whole concept. What's your favorite activity or sport?
Swimming.
Oh, yeah, you missed that one.
I missed that this morning. Yeah.
Well, thanks again for doing that.
Yeah.
What would you want to be reborn as?
I wouldn't.
Oh,
it's been a great life. That's the whole point, right?
One person that you have met or you would like to meet?
Bill Gates. Love to meet him.
Any specific reason? Any questions you want to ask him?
Well, he's just this amazing entrepreneur who was one of the few who took it from an idea all the way to scaling it into a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yes.
And then he transformed to philanthropy in a huge way. I think
making a huge impact.
Yeah, and he's making a huge impact. So I think there's something wonderful about that.
Yes, agreed. Okay, so you shared your journey in like less than 60 seconds, but we'll give you 30 extra seconds for that.
Okay.
Tell us what Cinarra does.
Cinarra develops insights about people based on their offline location visit behavior. And we apply that to advertising, marketing, and business use cases.
So essentially what you're doing is, instead of tracking someone online, we're actually tracking them in the physical world.
Yes. We are tracking them in the physical world in aggregate and in an anonymized way.
Right. Not me individually, but as
you
an
as part
entity.
of a group.
Correct.
As a group with common interests and common approaches to things.
Attributes,
if you will.
Right.
Yeah.
And in this process, you're collecting a lot of data, you're doing a lot of analysis, you're pretty much building a market space for on one end for advertisers, but on the other end for the telecom companies to monetize their data.
That's correct.
Right. So if data is the new oil, right, who are these different players? Who are the telecom companies? Who are the customers? And what is Cinarra? How do they fit in the the pipeline refinery kind of analogy?
Okay. Trying to tie it to an old world industry is interesting. So if you think about telecom companies, they're the reservoir of data.
Right.
So you can think of them as the oil reservoirs tied to drilling and bringing that out. Cinarra is more like a refinery. We take that data, we analyze it, develop the insights, and then the advertisers, marketers are kind of the pipeline delivery mechanism. They're using those insights to achieve some business outcomes.
Okay. Makes sense. I didn't think you would be able to fit all of them, but you did. That's pretty amazing.
It was an interesting question, trying to take something new in the tech world to apply it to an old analogy.
Yes,
in
that has existed for
almost 100 years. Yeah.
Give us a sense of the scope and the scale of operations of Cinarra.
Cinarra is a startup,
right?
But it's an unusual startup.
Right.
We have close to 60 people, and the company has sites distributed between Russia, Japan, and the U.S., which is pretty rare for a startup at this stage of the game. We are single-digit millions in revenues, and since the original founders were Russian, we set up a development center in Russia and a development center in the U.S. and product resources, et cetera, in the U.S., so we could tap venture capital here as well. It just turned out that the first partner we managed to get was SoftBank Corp in Japan. A small company. And so that led to sales development in Japan. So we've been commercial in Japan since 2015 and have had revenues since. So we're currently high single-digit millions in revenues.
And your Series B?
We're Series B.
Right.
So you could think of it as a stage where we have product validation, we have customers, but we don't have the scale yet. So we're still wrestling with the issues of that ideal product market fit where we'll get the velocity.
Yeah. Perfect. So you actually came out of semi-retirement to take this opportunity. I mean, you were not actively looking to do something, but then you just kind of come out. And so why? What drove you to this?
Well, one, it was just I love to learn.
Yes.
It's one of the things that keeps me going, and this was different enough that I said, hey, I can bring the common learnings about how to build and grow a team and build and grow a startup to a domain that was different from me, different from what I'd experienced before. So that meant I could bring some skills to the table, but I would also learn about something I'd never considered before.
So kind of appeal to your entrepreneurial mindset.
It appealed to my sense of learning. I just love learning new things and growing. So if you look at my career and the way I whether switched locations or companies, often they were, while the core of it was in hardware and systems, they were all slightly different, sometimes in their business model, sometimes in their go-to-market. So I look for something different because that's an opportunity for me to learn.
It's a new challenge.
It's a new challenge.
It puts you in that discomfort zone where...
Exactly.
Nice.
So I don't like being in the comfort zone because then it gets boring.
I completely feel you. So you were the CEO of a public company, Adaptec, right?
Right.
There was some shareholder activity over there that kind of led to a sale to, was it PMC Sierra?
Right.
It's not a common thing for a entrepreneur or for a leader to experience.
Right.
Were there any learnings or insights that came out of that experience that you can share with us?
Yeah, it was an unusual situation. Adaptec was a company I'd worked at before in the 90s in a very successful phase of the company.
Right.
And I grew with it, the company grew, and it was a lot of fun. Mid-2000s, the company was going in the wrong direction. And so the board approached me about taking the helm to right the ship. And the thing I learned is restructuring a company when it's public is incredibly hard. And everything is scrutinized. And in fact, I have to take my hat off to Satya Nadella. The way he has basically redirected the company in such a short time is just phenomenal. But in my case, I was trying to do this as the revenues were falling. And in fact, as part of that, I divested some businesses and built the cash on the balance sheet
for sustenance.
And that attracted a bunch of activist shareholders who came into the company and tried to force a sale. And initially we resisted that and convinced them to work with us on rebuilding the company. But eventually 2008 crash happened, and by 2009 they were getting pressure also. And eventually there was another round of a proxy fight that eventually led to the sale of the company to PMC Sierra. It was not, in my view, a fun experience. I love working with teams, building products, dealing with customers, and all of that. And that's where the fun is in any business. This was dealing with a very different dynamic. Wasn't enjoyable, and as everything else, you learn from it. You understand the nuances of business model structures, what matters to public investors, etc. So I came away with a lot of learnings, but definitely wouldn't wish that experience on anybody.
Well, but if someone is going through that, they can always approach you now.
Yeah, I have a few lessons I can share.
How would you define your management style?
I'm decisive, demanding. I hold accountability very seriously. So decisive, demanding, and supportive. So at the end, we're a team. We're trying to make Cinarra successful.
Yeah. And on the flip side, what kind of people are you obviously looking to hire to gel with that kind of a culture?
So there are three things that matter for me in any role that I hire. One is values alignment. At the heart of it, as humans, we focus on trust, respect, and integrity. That's core to any company, as core to any human being, and that's important to me in anybody I hire, that there's alignment on those. The second is what I call behavioral alignment. And those are, particularly for a startup, a sense of urgency, speed, accountability, getting things done and being committed to that, and teamwork, collaborating. We're a small environment. We can't afford prima donnas and big egos, so those things have to be left at the door. So I look for that behavioral alignment. Are these people who are aligned on these aspects? And then the third is the functional discipline. You want somebody in their functional discipline who's way better than I am. You want to be surrounded by people who are awesome in their respective roles. So I look for those three things: the domain of functional expertise, the behavioral alignment, and the values alignment. But the number one is the values alignment.
I see two of those up there, right?
Yeah.
Get shit done and no BS zone.
No BS zone. Yeah. No, you got to be direct. Sometimes people find that hard, but being direct and constructive is better than avoiding things. You solve problems faster.
Agreed. And I like the clarity and the transparency around it, right?
Yeah.
Setting the right expectations, people know coming in what we are delivering to, and if that's not for you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
What marks the difference between the times you have succeeded and then the times that you haven't?
Actually, three things. One is the team. You have, or you can, if you assemble a good team, most of the problems are solved.
Right.
That's actually the first step towards success. The second is a value proposition that's compelling. If you have a Me Too value proposition, it's very hard to succeed. You have to have a compelling value proposition. And the third, and this is something I didn't realize. These two, over time, you get to realize. The third one I realized from experience. The third is being in the market at the right time. The market window is extremely critical. If the market isn't there, or the customer's willingness or ability to spend in a particular category isn't there, it doesn't matter how great a team you have and how compelling the value proposition is, it's not going to happen. We saw this, and I experienced this firsthand when I was running Jetstream. Super team, we built a great product, solid value proposition, we were winning all the customers, and then the telecom market crashed in 2001, and the entire market fizzled. So it didn't matter team or product. The market matters too. So you need all three. You need to hit the right market window, you need to have a compelling value proposition, need to have a solid team.
Great. You've held senior leadership positions, and now as an advisor, as a board member at several large public and private companies, Adaptec, Gridgrain, and so on. Any specific observation, insight, or experience that kind of runs as an overarching theme that you can share?
I'd say it comes down to two things. One is the tone and culture in the company, and the second is whether you're in a growth environment or not.
Right.
If you have the right foundation, culture, and tone in the company, and you're in a growing sector with the right proposition, it's a lot of fun. I was fortunate to be in companies like Hewlett-Packard in the 80s when things were good, and at Adaptec in the 90s, and they were solid, fantastic experiences. I was in startups and on the board of startups where you see a lot of passion and drive and energy, fantastic experiences. If I look at the negative experiences, it's usually companies that didn't have the right culture. So I'd say it's culture comes first, and then growth.
Culture eats strategy for lunch.
Right.
For breakfast, what is it? So we kind of touched upon this one, but at a deeper level, what drives you? Is this the need to impress someone or yourself consciously or subconsciously, or is there a different energy that's kind of...
I don't know if it's trying to impress someone. Maybe it's trying to impress me. But really what drives me, and I take it in two phases. In the first phase, it was all about achievement. Give your best and achieve something. But then later, it was all about learning. If I got a chance to learn something new, it got me excited enough to go try it.
So obviously it's not for the money, it's not for, that's kind of behind you. That's why you came out of retirement. It was the excitement of, I get to do something new. It's like the childlike energy is kind of... That's the drive.
No, it's the newness. It's the learning. We all, if you think about us as kids, especially in the 0 to 5, it's just sheer joy because every day you're learning something.
And that's the best thing.
And that's awesome, right? And later, as you find yourself, and I find tremendous energy when I'm learning or doing something new.
What's your guiding principle or a motto or purpose statement?
Phrase it in two different ways. One, give your best, and the rest gets just taken care of. Or, as the Gita says, karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. That's my guiding principle, and I've learned it over and over in life.
In many different perspectives.
In many different ways. It comes down to that.
So outside of work and all the serious stuff, and maybe I should pre-qualify, swimming doesn't count.
Swimming doesn't count.
What do you do for fun?
Travel and hiking.
Okay.
I love being in the outdoors. Told you earlier, Yosemite was one of my favorite places. I love visiting national parks and beautiful nature sites around the world.
Okay. And any specific hikes you did in the recent past you want to talk about?
Well, the most recent one was the Panorama Trail at Yosemite, which I do at least once a year.
Nice.
But one of the most memorable ones 2 years ago when we went to Patagonia.
Oh yeah.
Those hikes were just simply phenomenal, amazing.
Out of this world.
Out of this world.
Have you used a coach or a mentor along this journey?
I did. In the 90s was probably the only time I had a formal coach. Adaptec had an executive coach that worked with all the execs on the team.
Okay.
And that was the only time I worked with someone formally. The rest of the time is just ad hoc. You reach out to someone by association. You say, okay, I can learn something, and go ask the person a few tips, questions, etc. So those are varied over time. But definitely at Adaptec, I had that formal coach. And he was actually very instrumental in a key choice in my career. So when I went, until then I'd only been in large and mid-sized companies, and yet I was in Silicon Valley, the hotbed of innovation. And it was, and as I was talking to him about various things and next steps in my career, he asked me a question that I reflected on, and that then led me to be open to startup opportunities. And then I jumped in and took that couple of startups, and then after that went back to Adaptec. So, and then back, it just opened the horizons because startups were a possibility. Now, unlike some of the entrepreneurs who are founders and take risk at the very idea stage to say, okay, I've got this nugget of an idea that I'm going to then build around. I'm not that kind of entrepreneur. I love startups. I come in as CEO usually at a Series B stage where and then you scale.
Right. Yeah. And we talked about this briefly. There is a distinction between entrepreneurs of the kind that get stuck on a problem and kind of devote their life, or at least that part of their life, to figuring out the solution. And then there are entrepreneurs that are able to help with the operational aspects and scaling the business, understanding the product market fit.
Right.
And that distinction needs to be understood, and the sooner you understand what kind you are, the more successful you are.
Exactly. And the ones who are able to make that transition are able to lead in the organization through their life. And we have examples of that in tech.
Yeah.
And others make transitions or changes.
Right. How has your Indian ethnicity shaped you in your decisions, in business, in personal life? Even if it means, it has hindered you in some places or pushed you in some others and made you more successful?
So I wouldn't say it's ever hindered me. I think I've been fortunate that I worked in a tech culture, and tech culture for the most part has been very open, and it's always about what you can bring to the table. Often the things that have helped me generally, if you think about our upbringing, is this ability to deal with adversity, the ability to deal with challenges. I mean, we talk about it in things like kismat or fate, but really underlying that, the real statement is learn to accept and deal with things outside your control. Right? The things in your control, you still want to drive and make things happen, but things outside your control, learn to recognize and accept them and move on. This too shall pass, kind of thing. And that's definitely one of the inherent things that's in me, and I think it's ingrained from the way we grew up. And so this notion of everything isn't going to go your way. So adapt and adjust and accept.
And I think that goes very well with this world that we live in the innovation tech, where things look amazing, promising 1 second, and then the second.
That's right.
It's like this is a disaster.
Right. And I've lived it in some of the startups. I've lived it. So.
So, you've had an amazing career path. You've hustled. You've made it. I'm speaking on your behalf. I'm guessing you've made it.
I have. I mean, I am way beyond anything I dreamt of when I came to this country.
So going from all of that to this phase of your life where you're still hustling in some ways, but you're also looking back and paying it forward and giving it away, right? So kind of that philanthropic side of you. So talk to us a bit about what do you think, and what's the thought process behind it?
Well, when you look around you, here, when you regularly go to India or even other places, South America, Africa, you recognize how fortunate you are. And when you look back, you realize a lot of that was the result of other people helping you out in direct and indirect ways. And so at some point in your life, you say, look, I got to do my part with the next generation, whether that's giving your time, whether it's mentoring, whether it's giving money, etc. So that's kind of always spurred me that we aren't an island, and it's our job to help the underprivileged as well. So I've been active in some nonprofits to help underprivileged children in India, an organization like Pratham. And I've also been active with my IIT alumni organization. I think a lot of who I am today is because of the training I got there. And
the network maybe, right?
And the network has been immensely useful. And so giving back there is an important thing. So I'm also on the board of the IIT Madras Foundation and helping alumni find ways to give back, because we want to make that a world-class institution as well. So.
Well, thank you for all you do. I know we as a community have done a lot, but we can do a lot more. And I know you have been a champion, bringing a lot of people back in. You were instrumental in getting Sundar last year to come talk at Pratham. So thank you for all you do. What are you most excited about in life, like generally, right now?
Practically everything. I mean, at this stage, it's an amazing stage in my life, right? My kids are grown on their own feet. I get to travel. I get to choose the jobs I want. You can't ask for anything better. I'm very blessed and thankful for all the opportunities and the people who have helped me along the way. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a great place to be in.
Yeah.
Any practical or philosophical advice for other entrepreneurs or other people that are considering entrepreneurship and looking at this journey and kind of questioning should we or should we not?
Right. So there are two types of entrepreneurial businesses. And I'll talk to the tech side because that's the one I'm most familiar with. And in tech entrepreneurship, we often get carried away by the technology itself because we're all geeks at heart. We get carried away. And one of the fundamental lessons is it doesn't matter how cool your technology or product is. If customers don't care, it doesn't matter. So understanding that customer insight, understanding what they're really looking for, and developing that compelling solution. Be very brutal about saying, is this truly making a 10x difference in the value that the customer perceives? Then you have a shot at it. And you have to have incredible patience and perseverance because a lot of things will go wrong along the way. And you have to have the conviction and the drive to stay at it to make something happen. And things may still fail. And the beauty of startups, and particularly Silicon Valley, is failure is okay. You learn from it, you dust off, and go try again in a different idea or startup.
You didn't lose anything. You just gained experience.
You just gained experience. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. Well,
there's no such thing as failure. Is just a set of actions that didn't yield the result you wanted. So you go learn from it, and you go at it again.
Well, thank you so much, Sundi. This was amazing. I'm really thankful for you to take the time and join us, and for sharing, your wisdom and what you've learned with us.
Well, I hope this helps some people, and this has been a delightful session as well. Very insightful questions.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Nitin. Great to see you.
Take care, guys.